So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you. Namaste and welcome to the Blub World Web Talks 109th episode. In the last 108 episodes, more than 1,500 school leaders, educators, innovators have participated on this platform, shared their ideas, opinions, observations and innovations on what all new, different, innovative is happening in the K-12 space, or to simply put it, what's going on in schools. So now when the world is facing a pandemic, at this point, everything around us is evoluting, and it's evoluting at a pace which is beyond our control. And it is something that was even beyond our imagination for some time, because we never imagined of going into an absolute lockdown for a country like India, because with this set of new challenges, which we couldn't ever visualize, this was a time for absolute innovation, change, or something amazing to be born. So during this time, some amazing things happened across schools, because one simple thing that schools did throughout this pandemic and throughout this lockdown that India faced was to keep anxiety of all these homes at bay. घरों को शांत रखा, बच्चों को शांत रखा, सबको engaged रखा. So this very platform is a bilingual platform, so we'll be using English and Hindi sometimes. If you don't understand Hindi, don't worry, there won't be a lot of it, but yes, there might be some Hindi during the whole interaction, because we don't want language to be a barrier in any ideation or innovation. So to start today, when you look at the topic, it's something that we have already talked about a lot, that most of you must have already talked about on different platforms, on different arenas. But now when we talk about it today, there's a small little caveat that gets attached to it. So the topic for today is, will computers replace teachers? Or a question that Blub World has been asking for the first 50 episodes, that is technology really teaching? So when we talk about this, just to give you some small information, the first algorithm which could actually mark or evaluate a student's English literature essay was written, accomplished and successfully operated in the year 2012. But since then, that has not come into implementation. But one thing that we know for sure, live and virtual classes and these Zoom call classes have become very successful. So we are right now in the lurch of trying to understand, do we adopt technology? Do we adapt to it? Or does technology adopt us? Because that's something that we need to understand, because one of the school leaders on this very platform articulated it in a very nice way, that technology एजुकेशन के घर का वो बच्चा है जो अब बड़ा हो गया है और अब उसने पूरे घर की जिम्मेदारी अपने कंधों पे ले ली. To put it, I think I must translate it as well, that technology is the child of education which has now grown up and has taken the responsibility of the house on its own shoulders, because that's the only way education could continue. So thank you so much once again, everybody, for being here with us on the Blub World Web Talks 109th episode. Let me now give it an initial start to this, and let's call the chairperson for today's roundtable to set the ball rolling and put the right reference and the right thoughts in the mind, so that we can get some amazing ideas from the practitioners or the real education warriors who are handling virtual classes, students, teachers, and the whole stakeholder ecosystem around them in the field of K-12 education. A very warm welcome to the first speaker for today and the chair for the roundtable, Mr. Sahil Agarwal, who's the co-founder and CEO for Rishihood University from Sonipat, Haryana, India. Sahil ji, over to you for the introduction of the roundtable. A very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Dakshi. And I just realized that it is your 109th talk, and 108 is a very special number in the Indian philosophy. So congratulations to you for reaching that milestone. I think it has been a very immense achievement that you have achieved in a very short span of time. So congratulations for that. There were a lot of discussions during this pandemic on how do we use technology for learning, what will be the future of education. And when we were discussing about this session and we thought of this topic, we thought that the simplicity of this question is not as simple as it looks like. Will computers replace teachers? It's going to be a very provocative thing for all of us, and I hope with eminent educators and school leaders who have joined us for this session today, we will have a lot of food for thought that we can take away from this session. And it's great to have people not just from India but also from Pakistan, Nepal, and Europe with us, because then we also get a perspective from different regions globally. So When I was thinking of this question, my journey into education has been recent. Just 6 years ago, I graduated from college. Since I was studying technology, so this had been at the back of the mind. And when I was in college, artificial intelligence was just picking up. We were finding the mass applications of artificial intelligence. The technology had been developed, but it had not been used for such widespread applications till then. And being interested in education, we have been wondering what will happen to education if technology gets so intelligent that it starts superseding human intelligence. And I think we have reached that stage where at least some of technology has started to become intelligent than some of humans. I mean, intelligent than more humans in some, intelligent than all humans in some respect, definitely, if not all humans in all respects. So it's a very provocative time for all of us who are in education to figure out our own future. As in, if I put it simply, I think the entire profession of being a teacher is at stake if we don't question and answer this this issue properly in the coming years. So I think the way we should look at this discussion and our future reflections should be, till now we have been the custodians of knowledge. If you look at the value of a teacher, there were very few places where a student could actually get their information and knowledge from. And in that sense, the teachers and the schools and the education system had the monopoly over learning. That monopoly has been broken by technology. And when that happens, we have to reimagine what is it that we can really contribute. So this brings us to a point where rather than we thinking that this is what we have and let's just offer it, we have to think what is it that the students need? And is there something that we can offer to that student in the best possible way? Or is technology really the right source for the student for that information? So I think that we'll have to start our thinking or restart our thinking from understanding what is it that the students aspire for. So I think that will be the very first point of our rediscovery as educators. What is it that a student aspires for? And what is it that the student can potentially achieve? So a student may have an infinite potential, but they still may not aspire for achieving that. Their aspirations may be limited, their potential may be infinite. And when I say student, it is not just an individual, but it is also collectively the entire, because the society is made of, it's a collection of individuals. So if a student is aspiring for something, then collectively the society is also aspiring for something. And especially for people who are from India today, I think there is such a churn happening within the Indian society that what is our common aspiration? And when people say that 21st century, India has to play a crucial role, then a lot of things has been happening in influencers in our society, in educators, in teachers, in public leaders, in corporate leaders, about what is it that we collectively aspire for. So these two questions of aspiration and potential, I think become very important for me as an educator when I look at myself. Fortunately, I think what happened with us is a blessing in disguise in terms of COVID, because as we were setting up a very new university, we were thrown this question to us that if learning goes online, or if learning gets democratized, that you can learn anywhere, anytime, anything from any teacher, then what is really the value that we bring as a school or a university to the society? So it has been a very fortunate time for us to rethink the entire concept of education and the concept of educator. And we see that computers are really being able to do a lot that we were not able to do earlier. There was a time when we had the concept of palm tops, and we saw that mobile phones eventually replaced palm tops. Mobile phones have also replaced cameras the way we knew it, because now that same or better technology is available to us on our phones. There was an entire profession of typewriters, and the profession is largely wiped out. We know that within our lifetime, maybe 10 to 15 years from now, the profession of drivers as we know it will be replaced by technology-enabled cars. So it's not that we are talking of something in distant distance when we say, will computers replace teachers? We are we're talking right here, right now. It's not a fantasy that this question is giving to us. So I think the way technology is shaping up, the teachers of the future will be those who can really use this technology for the good of the student. And it's time, I think, for teachers to not be, teachers and educators to not be so confounded by this entire idea of technology, but to shake hands with it and to understand our own limitations when we start engaging with technology. I think it's really the time for us to reinvent ourselves from people who can teach a subject to people who can mentor and provide that life guidance to a student, because the subject knowledge, I think, is available on the internet. What we need is to enable a student to use that subject knowledge to create something beautiful for his or her own life. And that's where a very guru kind of a mentor kind of a role that teachers will have to play. I think the way teaching education has been designed, the B.Ed and the M.Ed education has been designed, that itself will undergo a very major reform, and the new education policy also facilitates that reform. So definitely the times are going to be very interesting, very exciting, and most likely very challenging for people who are in education. And it will be great to listen to all of your comments because you have been there. With this, I'll rest my introductory remarks, and I look forward to a very exciting discussion here.
Thank you so much, Sahil ji, for this amazing start. And yes, aspiration and at the same time potential. बहुत सारी चीजों का पारस्परिक कंपटीशन कंटिन्यूस होता रहता है एजुकेशन में, और ये सारी चीजें एजुकेशन ज्यादा डिफाइन करती है। सोसाइटी हमारी कैसी होगी, हम क्या सोचेंगे, क्या परसेप्शंस लेके जिएंगे, कैसे बड़े होंगे, ये सब कुछ स्कूल कर देता है। And this role has now become even more bigger because the classroom has quadrupled in size. Because the student is there, his friend also might be there, his cousin might be there in that very call, the parents might be there. And right now a school is not just teaching a class. It's really teaching a society all around. You are now setting the new benchmark, you're now setting the new aspiration, because the complete control is within your hands. And at this point, when we talk of technology coming into education, just to give you a little bit of context, because I think as humans and as the way we adopted and adapted to technology within such a small span of time, we forgot one thing. The simple purpose of creating a machine, or the definition of a machine, was to reduce human effort. And what we could finally see in our real lives was technology in reality removed humans. And we are happy with it because we are happy with an ATM machine rather than an actual teller. We are happy with a web check-in kiosk at the airport rather than standing in front of a counter. And we are very happy in using appliances for cleaning, and we don't want anybody within our homes. So at this point, when humans don't want humans, what do we really need in a society? And how much do you want technology to play a part in it? So thank you so much, Sahil ji, for giving this an amazing start. Let me invite the first school leader for today. And before I invite him, as just a small notification for everybody, this is a timed platform. So once your speaking time is over, you might get muted. If you get muted, please don't get offended. It is just to finish this activity on time, and so that it's an enjoyable experience for everybody who's there on the call. So the next speaker for today, a very warm welcome to Mr. Harinder Chhabra, founder, director of the Infinity School from Greater Noida, Uttar Pradesh. Harinder ji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio, and a very warm welcome.
Well, thank you. Like Sahil said, a very simple but a very profound statement that has been made. And I like what he asked. What does a student want? I have always believed that students don't come to school to learn. They come to make friends. They come to enjoy their life. They want to be with and have fun. At least till about they start realizing that what they're learning is going to help them in the future. That's what the parents start talking about around, say, year 6, year 7, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8. So till that time, they're there. And they have a very open mind. They have a very curious mind. So the whole idea of education in a school, I think, has been misconstrued in the recent couple of decades or 3 decades as largely giving knowledge or feeding information to the hungry mind. I think it had to be right from the very beginning about developing humans who are perceptive, developing humans who have knowledge, who have the right skills, not just contemporary skills, but have the skill to even improve their own skills as and when required in the future. Uh, so I think it became what it is today in most of the schools, is largely a factor of how we assess our children. Um, and I think Sahil talked about NEP. I think the first thing, if I may say, that needs to change the assessment system. Everything else will fall in place, and I think that's the way NEP should be kind of looked at. Coming to technology, I think given how I define education in terms of you know, growing up a small child and making him an adult in thinking, ensuring they have the maturity to deal with people, they have the right mindset, they have the right thinking skills. All of this requires a lot of hand-holding. It requires a lot of human intervention. And I mean, yes, today, because of the pandemic, we can say technology is permeated into every room, every house. But then even there, I mean, it's not that the computer is teaching, the teacher is teaching. It's just that the method of reaching out to the student has changed. You're reaching out to them through screens rather than they be seeing you in three-dimensional right in front of them in the classroom. So I think it's very far-fetched to honestly to compare mechanized jobs of an ATM machine or any other example that we talked about to what a human being, which is a teacher, does. Because teaching to me is an art. It is an art, is something we still, if you look at what we hear about the World Economic Forum saying as the 21st century skills.
Thank you so much, Harinder sir. To summarize what you said, from the school being just a feeding center of information to developing humans, and finally how we assess our children, or assessment becoming the really critical factor, because yes, all the policies finally boil down to how you assess children. And once the assessment is right, everything else automatically falls into line. And yes, teaching cannot be compared to a mechanical process. And yes, it is in itself an art, but we now need to understand that the most important factor in a teacher, rather than or other than his subject knowledge, is somewhere patience. Because when we talk of an education system which we currently are in, or even the product of which I myself am, we must understand for every curious question that comes to us, the simple answer is discipline. And which is where the real issue happens, where we kill that curiosity of a child. So what do you think should happen to that curiosity, and how should it be kept alive? Because this is something that we lose in our school life and we try to build in our professional life when we advance to strategic positions, because that's what we miss a lot. And we must answer this question as well, that teachers might lose patience, but a computer does not. So I'm not an advocate of technology, but I need to put the right questions in the right places so that I get amazing ideas from all of you people. So thank you so much, Harinder ji, for your amazing contribution. Let me invite the next speaker for today, Mrs. Prema Muralidhar, Educational Affairs Director and Principal, Woodlem Park School from Ajman, UAE. So Prema, ma'am, a very warm welcome to you to the Blub World Web Talks.
Thank you, Daksh, and that was lovely to hear Sahil express beautiful thoughts. I must admit that I have been extremely lucky to spend a good portion of my time in the Middle East. When I say Middle East, you all know that for the last 7-8 months, we have been going full guns with virtual learning. And it's just not virtual learning, but when we think of technology replacing teachers, yes, it has to some extent, because technology, I think, is just merely an augmentation to a teacher, right? It can help the process of learning, but it will certainly not replace the role of this teacher. Because as of now, it does not have the power to replace teachers, because human interaction cannot be replaced by computers, and human skills cannot be taught by technology. So this is the crux of the whole thing. But honestly speaking, with the motto, be the change, all school leaders in this part of the globe, we came in, we have empowered ourselves and our teams, and we have very, very strategically designed the strategic plan of the school to accommodate technology into the classrooms. We have flipped the classrooms. Yes, technology has come in. Yes, technology has taken all of us by storm, where a teacher thought that she had some time to embrace it. she now has, has just caught unawares. But with this coming in, what has happened is the 21st century learning in its true form is actually taking place. Because what we see now are that children, they already know information is readily available. I think we all agreed on the platform. And what we wanted to happen was where meaningful content transfer can happen. And for this, the children had to develop the facets of, let's say, empathy, perception, and also self-knowledge, where the child is not anymore just a taker, but a researcher. The job opportunities available or going to be available is not that something that the child is going to look for, but he or she will become a solution provider and find himself a placement where he will be able to use his thoughts constructively. And this is what education has done to us, and it has started. Thanks to all the ministerial bodies and the inspection framework that we all have, we have been guided tremendously towards embracing this quick change, adopt and adapt the culture of taking technology together. Yes, social well-being, or let's say socialization, was missing, but thanks to the breakout rooms, as Daksh rightly said, yes, technology has come in, but will technology replace teachers? I still say no, and it's a big no till the end of my life here. However, if a teacher does not embrace it and does not use it anymore in the right context, then you will be left far behind. I mean, there will be others to take you over and ride over you. So what
Thank you so much, Prema ma'am. We'll try to come back to you, but some amazing contribution to summarize what you said, that tech is an augmentation to a teacher. Absolutely, that's an aid that the teacher must tame, because technology must now be learned how to use it, because you need it right now. And most importantly, it adds a very new flavor to education. Students want it. They are a technology-born generation. They are very accustomed to it. They're very happy with it. It's us who has to adapt, not them. And the purpose of education is only and only them and not us. So let's be the enablers, accept technology, and find right ways to implement it. Yes, your administration, the country, the government there has been very, what I would say in terms of India, it had been very easy to handle with. In India, that's not the case, because in India, education is a concurrent subject of the constitution. So there's a lot of, counter policy issues that keep happening. But yes, the new education policy that has come in India right now has sorted a lot of things. And we're right now trying to figure out where does these pegs finally go and fit themselves. So students should not just be a taker and rather a researcher. So thank you so much, Prema ma'am, for your amazing thoughts. Let me invite the next speaker for today, Dr. C.P. Mishra, Director Principal, Prudence School, Ashok Vihar, Delhi, India. Mishra ji, a very warm welcome. Over to you for the next 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dakshi. Thank you for the same thing. Just if you are talking about the technology, that 3 minutes is the technology. Basically, we are fixing the technology. And that is the basically technology. I know very well that technology cannot be removed, but I can say technology can be removed if you are not updating yourself. You will be removed. Teaching will be removed. Because in education, first of all, we are supposed to see what is the purpose of education. We are just frustrated and we are always teaching and teaching the students. As a young entrepreneur and the CEO of Rishihood, this Sahil Agarwal ji said very clearly, aspiration and the innovation. Aspiration sabke paas hai, I know very well. But innovation is not there. And if you do not have the innovation, automatically you are just like a dead body. So you require the innovation, and for that innovation, you require something more than that, which is not in the, you can say, books of, in your own books, basically. You are supposed to come out of the books. And for that, we are supposed to see the life skills part of the 21st century skills, basically. There are the 3 types of skills I know all the peoples know very well, that has mentioned by the CBSE also. And out of that, I can divide this 21st century skills into 3 parts: learning skills, listening skills, and the, literacy skills, learning skills, and the life skills. I'm not discussing about the learning skills and life skills because we are discussing about the digital. So I am supposed to see the literacy skills part. And that literacy skills is divided into 3 parts. That is IMT, information, media, and technology. How information you are using, how media you are using, and how technology you are using, that is your education basically. If you are unable to know how to use the technology, if you are unable to know how to use the mobile phone, nobody will tell you. And you will be not updated and definitely you will not do the well things. No, I know very well. Blackboard is converted into the green board, and green board converted into the whiteboard converted into the smart board, and smart board converted to the Zoom classes. These all are step-by-step changes. Typewriter to computer typing is all types of changes, and we had not learned somewhere else. I had never learned the computer. I had never touched keyboard in my student's life. I touched the keyboard when I joined the company and when I started my profession. So this is the technology where I'm supposed to learn. And this learning part is one of the important part. And for that, what we require? Learning is basically required by something. In my school, basically, I can say I am totally done these things, all these things from 2013. And I'm saying this word, maybe noted this thing, out of 2023 or 24, the books will be removed. You require the tablets. You require the technology to keep the books of records. You're not going to give the printed books and all these things, and the person will give the research work. If you're giving the research work, let us assume the innovation and research work. How you can present your paper, how you can check your papers. Innovation can be done with the help of the technology. Technology will reduce. If you are getting something, just like Daksh.
Thank you so much, Mishra ji. To summarize what you said, that innovation is largely missing. There's a lot of content that's being delivered, but yes, aspiration sabki bahut sari hai, innovation bahut majorly gayab hai. Because when we talk of a country like India, we use a lot of products. We are the technology sweatshop of the world, but we do not have a lot of technology product companies coming out of India. And that's where we can really find that, yes, innovation is absolutely missing. That's the empirical proof that we have not been innovating. We are only trying to give solutions to innovations and not rather creating new solutions. So you talked about literacy, learning, and life skills with information media technology, self-learning, and a forecast or a bhavishwani that you just did that post 2024, we won't have books in schools and we would need iPads or tablets. And I think to rather a much larger extent, all of us agree to that, because paper as such has lost a lot of value, because right now we need a dynamic paper, which we call a tablet or a phone or a screen like this that we are right now interacting on. So thank you so much, Mishra ji. Let me now invite the next speaker for today, Ms. Meera Mathur, Principal, Delhi Public School, Ghaziabad International School from Ghaziabad, Uttar Pradesh. Meera ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. A very warm welcome.
Thank you, Daksh ji and Sahil ji, for this opportunity to express my perspective. I'd like to dwell on what a teacher is and what is the role of a teacher before deliberating whether or not the teacher can be replaced by computers. I dare say that due to the pandemic, maybe due to the hybrid or blended learning mode that's being followed by schools across the world, this question is even more relevant today. Broadly speaking, the function of teachers is to help students learn by imparting knowledge, by setting up a situation in which students can and will learn effectively. But teachers fill a complex set of roles, and some of these roles are that of a surrogate parent, the go-to person when in need or when in distress, a confidant to students, sometimes just listening, other times lending a shoulder to cry on, a lauder of achievement, a marker of milestones, a touchstone who helps set a benchmark, set a standard, a fountainhead, a source and builder of attitudes, values, and dispositions, character, what have you, a connector with the community, an expert of knowledge and skills to turn to, even an agent of social change, I may say. In short, a role model and an inspiration. This is apart from the academic tasks of being the organizer, the transactor, facilitator of curriculum, and being a scholar and a research specialist. Does all this really need to be compared with the attributes of a computer? Let me share an anecdote. Recently, the grade 5 homeroom tutor found a usually chirpy child less responsive and gloomy during the session. So she deliberately took a break in teaching and involved the students in a game, which meant interacting with other students. The child was physically in the class already, but this got him back completely. And the teacher, she casually went back to the lesson being transacted with no one being the wiser. And this kind of intuitive element can be brought about by a teacher only, and no technology can replace this. A computer would not even have known or may have made matters worse by monotoning. Student not responding, entry failed, or some such thing, would that be good for the EQ or for the emotional quotient? So teaching people-centered job, whether it is the helper or the conductor who gets off the bus to guide a child inside, or whether it is the homeroom tutor saying a bye when the child leaves, we are constantly surrounded by people. Teachers are not, and they cannot be automatons, handing out information to students. They are leaders, they are guides, they are facilitators, and they are mentors. So you talked about ATM machines, etc., right? Agreed. Because there's no skill involved in handing out money. Human skills like decision-making, time management, these cannot be taught by technology. What about the role of communication skills? What about creativity? What about empathy? Can these be replaced by a machine? So let's not reduce teaching to mere instruction and assessment. Let's acknowledge that the true breadth and complexity of the jobs that the teachers perform. Effective teachers do more than present information and drill fundamentals. So technology should not be like a horse that is unharnessed. It should be a horse that is saddled and straddled and is used to enhance the teaching learning experience. High quality teachers, they guide their students through activities and projects. They stretch the children to the...
Thank you so much, Meera ma'am. To summarize, you typically took the discussion from teachers and computers to defining a teacher or going to the actual fundamental role or a definition of a teacher, that kaun se roles hain ya kya facets hain of being a teacher, from not just being an instruction giver and an evaluator. Iske beyond bhi bahut sare roles hain teacher play karta hai, which is typically of a surrogate parent, setting the benchmark, being an inspiration, and most importantly, computers would never have been able to address the emotional quotient of humans. And as it's said in the field of marketing that humans buy from humans, I think that's very, very true in education, that humans get taught by humans. And that's where the human factor becomes very critical in teaching. Now, when we talk of taming technology, that's where the real challenge arises. Because now most of the people who are making these decisions of putting technology to use or putting technology within an organization are mostly not tech savvy. And when we talk of a country like India, we do not have a strong child online user protection enactment in our country or a legislation that we simply need. Right now, we follow a legislation that's made out in the US, which does not even have jurisdiction in India, that we call the Child Online User Protection Act. But I think now when technology has entered so drastically and dramatically in education, we now need a legislation at the earliest on typical online security of our children. So let me now invite the next speaker to add a perspective beyond India, and I think quite beyond India, somebody from Europe. A very warm welcome to Mr. Wayne Johnson, Head of School, International School of Belgium from Belgium. So Wayne, a very warm welcome to you to the Blub World Web Talks. The next 3 minutes are yours.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of this group, so thank you, and it's been very interesting hearing what everybody has to say. In some ways, I think it's been a very interesting case study, what's happened with COVID, about this question. I would say I would probably answer this question very differently 9-10 months ago. And despite Belgium having one of the worst cases of corona per population in the world, the schools opened again in August, and they've remained open since. So we've had students back on site. So it's been interesting to see the actual viewpoints of the advantages and disadvantages of online learning and the computers and teachers. And I will say really that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages of it. It's been fantastic that learning could carry on for a very high quality level, so students didn't fall behind. But the miss of the social interaction between each other for the students and for the teacher, the fact that when the students did come back on site, the fact there was cheers and the release and the relief from everybody actually, and from the teachers as well, because I don't think many teachers go into such a caring profession wanting to teach just online. It's about that interaction with their students and the connections they make on a human level. And also I'll just approach from the business side a little bit as well. From the parents and fee-paying schools, I know a lot of us in private schooling here, the fact that the parents, when they thought we would go online for a long time, were starting to ask for discounts and wanted reduced rates because they saw more value in the students being physically in the classroom. Whether that will continue longer term, I don't know, because in some ways, the advantages as well, based on what we did online learning, we actually put our class 3, our year 3s on the Chromebooks as well, because we thought they could handle it. So I think technology is a fantastic addition to teaching. I think the things you can do technology in the classroom and make lessons more interactive and interesting, I feel are amazing compared to what we could do 10 years ago. But it's really, as I say, as a case study, seeing online for 4 months and then going back to the physical environment, the relief and the release for everybody being actually on the site, I feel like maybe universities will be a different case study because they've been online for a much longer time.
Thank you so much, Wayne. You actually bring a kind of a crystal ball for Indians, because in India, most of the places, schools are not open yet. So you're doing kind of a, future telling for us that we are going to imagine, and, we can really think the kind of relief that we'll be having once physical schools restart in India. And yes, you were in online teaching mode from March to June, and from August you started on ground teaching. And yes, you talked about the physical aspiration of being a teacher or becoming a teacher. When you opt teaching as a career, you don't opt it for online teaching. You have a very different mindset when you want to teach. You want to go into the class, interact with kids and be with kids, because that's your real encouragement of being a teacher. So thank you so much, Wayne. Let me now invite the next speaker for today, Ms. Jyoti Arora, Principal, Delhi World Public School from Noida Extension, Uttar Pradesh. Jyoti ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. A very warm welcome.
I think a very good discussion, and what we have come across, all the previous speakers have picked up this point very well, that technology is never going to replace teachers. And as it is, when I was going through the LinkedIn profile, and I went through Sahilji's also, and one of the comments said that it is going to replace it partially, but not completely. I think technology is not there to replace us. No teacher as it is. It is there to support the teachers. And when one of the speakers, one of my colleagues, Meera ma'am, pointed about the role of teacher, and I would like to highlight here the role of education. So what do we say education is? Education is actually the acquiring of knowledge, values, and skills. And when you talk about, I read about Swami Vivekananda a lot, and I always value all his quotes. And when we are talking about the new education policy, which is going to connect us with the roots of the Indian cultural heritage, he said it is the perfection of manifestation in a person. And what is the main idea when you are, giving the children the school to study? Because we want education by which character is, I will say, he said, formed, strength of mind is increased, and the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on his or her feet. So when we are talking about education in these wider terms, and when we are talking about 21st century skills, which is collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So the idea here is that now the time has come that as teachers, teachers can never be redundant. The time is that we have to be very innovative, as a few of the speakers said, and the time is to train the teachers. And I think these 9 months have shown us all that teachers, they are very quick learners. And you talk about the next phase now, which is like we are talking about blended teaching learning experience, competency-based, and when you talk about value-based learning and art integration, different technologies. So I think the idea now is that the computers, they are there to support. They are like a tool. They're there to empower the teachers, but they cannot replace the teachers. It's a very simple question that Sahilji pointed initially in the beginning, but a lot of depth in that, because a computer cannot teach the basic life skills to a child. So equipping the child, and when you talk about, I think Daksh, you also said very well, the creative quotient. So when you're talking about the creative quotient, I will say the social emotional skills, and when you're talking about the social ethical learning, the creative quotient. So it is not only the IQ quotient that matters the most. So when you want complete individual,
Thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am. Tech is not there to replace us, but to support us. And yes, computers are a very good tool, and we are right now using them to their maximum strengths. And yes, when we talk about all this, there's just a small perspective that I wanted to add to the discussion. India as a country faces a lot of infrastructural challenges when we talk of online education. The government estimates tell us that nearly 60% of the learning population of India has been void of learning since the lockdown began because of internet, bandwidth, and some other issues. So while we discuss how technology has augmented teaching in the best of its forms, we must also try and find ways and modes to democratize the resources that enable online learning, because that's something that India and a lot of countries like us need at this very moment. Because right now we had the economic divide to deal with, a digital divide just came in and we don't know how to deal with it right now. So need to think on these lines as well. So thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am. And yes, creativity quotient, where you ended the discussion, is something more important, because we need to now really, create a simple differentiation between, if technology can do it, don't teach it. If technology cannot do it, then only teach it. So let me now invite the next speaker for today. He's somebody who comes from a country that has a very, mirch masala kind of a relationship with India. So let's have an interaction with him and try to find his perspective on what does he think the way education is evolving, and will we be able to give an identity of a global citizen to our students? Because a lot of, I must not say, but I'm rather saying it, when a lot of politics happens, a lot of polarization happens, and we forget that education is there to unify, not to define polarization and give us terms that polarize us. So a very warm welcome to the next speaker for today, Mr. Mohammad Yaseen Mirza, Principal Divisional Public School and College from Rawalpindi, Punjab, Pakistan. Mohammad Yaseen ji, a very warm welcome to the Blub World Web Talks. The next 3 minutes are yours.
Thank you very much, and definitely the mirch masala comes from both sides. That's why it remains over there. Actually, education is how to groom the individuals and how to groom the human values. If we go all together with the technology, so the human will be missing into it. Technology is actually to support this all, and computer is one form of the technology to support the education and the learning. There are different ways. If we see, computer is supporting us in different ways, like that we have the choice of time to study, we have the choice of the people to be contacted, we have the choice of our examination. Even suppose the person is not feeling well and he can take the time of his own choice to give the examination. Flexibility is there in everything. But at the same time, we should see when the people will be missing, the peer coaching will be missing, the person contact interaction will be missing. So one thing will be missing from this, and this is the inspiration. This is the emotions. There are so many people who are just in the field and they reach to the peak of their career after following some good names in the industry, following some good names in the teaching industry. So missing teacher from a classroom altogether, this will create some sort of human emotional problems as well. Like you see, if the person who are at boarding schools, they remain away, the students remain away from the parents, and at the end of the day, if we have the study over it, always there is the portion that is missing, the affections of the parents. Similarly, when we will remove human being from the teaching, it will create a gap between the students and the learning ethics. Yes, there is no doubt, computer can support us a lot if we take it as a supporting tool, not as a removing tool from the teacher to turning to the computer. Yes, at the same time, there are so many other problems, like you yourself said, internet problems. We cannot provide internet to all the person all the time, everywhere. Resources is another problem. There may not be there may not be people who can get all the tools easily. Another thing, what the contents will be seen by the student, at what time, it would be another question. So the responsibility of the parents will increase if we remove teacher from the class and we just go to the computers. Similarly, there would be technical issues. Yes, what contents he has to see, or what is the valuability of the contents and the credibility of the contents would be another question. So there are so many things we have to decide first. Another important issue, whether the computer is going to be the teacher of the future, where would be the medical issues nowadays people are facing while they are continuously sitting on the computers and going along with the technology. So these are the issues. The better solution is we should not go only to the one side of the technology. Let it be only an aid. Yes, we should go for the teaching with the good teacher as well as the communication skills through the technology. Teachers by born are very rare.
Thank you so much, sir. To summarize what you said, the importance of choice in technology is something very important. It gives us a different kind of a freedom, but at the same time, creates a different kind of a counterweight, which we are not able to handle, which comes with emotional pressure, challenges, a lot of depression coming in, because there's a lot of screen time in our lives now. School, the kind of family and it can be actually ambivalent. It happens both ways. For some, it's good. For some, it's bad. And computers must not guide us, because at the moment, that's what typically technology is doing. The world is now getting divided into the Googles and the Microsofts of the world. This is the new polarization that's coming in, that which are you loyal to? And the third one comes in from Apple, that are you an Apple user, a Microsoft user, or a Google one? So we are now defining the world in a different way. So education is aligning itself to it. So thank you so much. Let me now invite the next speaker for today, Mr. Gopal Dutta, Vice Principal Academics, Millsbury International School from Kathmandu, Nepal. Gopalji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. A very warm welcome.
Okay, it's fantastic. I mean, I have learned a lot of things from the previous speakers. I would like to thank you for inviting, us, and as a budding professional in this field. I have already learned a great deal. I have 3 solid points to make, actually. See, what I personally believe is that ICT is a vast sea which has its circumference everywhere, but nowhere the center is. And I'd like to assure you, it's an assuring statement for us all, that at the center remains the teacher. If you all consider the ICT as an ocean which has its circumference everywhere, at the center remains the teacher. So the teachers are to stay. Why I say so? My first argument is, or my isolation, some would rather say, what are we preparing through education? I believe we are, first of all, the industry, any sector or industry will evolve and evolve on its own. The sector will decide itself who stays and who leaves. For an example, it is the economy behind it that we often, kind of tend to ignore. It's a taboo kind of it. What is kind of economy in education? Of course, there it is. Economy is nothing but how we exchange education. It is the podium on which the entire grandeur of philosophy lies. We cannot ignore that. Therefore, the economy of education is also going to be a deciding factor who stays and who leaves. And what is that? It's nothing but exchange of knowledge. Second thing, what products we create, what products we produce. If the society does not need it, will be discarded, of course, no matter what you use. We had products like Swami Vivekananda, one of our honorable colleagues just mentioned. Yes, it's not a digital product, yet we still talk about Swami Vivekananda. And we might be discarded in coming 20 years if we cannot add any value. So it's not the question of technology or the teacher. It's all about the product that anybody creates. Now, I think teachers are going to stay. Why? Because we should create products who would have this, emotional kind of, capacity to empathize with the recent problems of the world and solve them. But we are further complicating by focusing on the how, not focusing on the why. All these machines tell us how, but this is the teacher who's telling us why should we do it. I'll give an example. I was thinking this afternoon while talking to my son. Suppose if you were a product of digital education completely, as we find in Isaac Asimov's stories and all, what would be a simple solution? Kill all the people who have been tested positive for COVID-19. Kill all the people who have been tested positive for COVID-19, and the world would be a COVID-free place. But a human student probably, or a product of a human teacher, would probably think, why? Not how to clean, why? Therefore, economy.
Thank you so much, Gopalji. The time was over. We'll try to come back to you, but some amazing thoughts. You brought a very different twist to the whole discussion when you talked about ICT having a big circumference and the center finally falling on a teacher. And the most important thing, we right now are living in an economy that's driven by education. We had an industrial revolution, and now when even the UN talks about the industrial revolution 4.0, it's typically an education or information driven economy. And at this point, we must understand economy, when finally boils down to exchange of education or exchange of information, we must understand even education has an economy of its own. So once you look at education as an economy, you look at the products and solutions from a very different lens. You look at the utility it serves and the kind of feasibility it has, and most importantly, its shelf life. And shelf life of things only happens when they're great. And in education, it only happens with great ideas. Everything else gets lost because education is just about ideas. So this is the time when you should rather put everything else aside and think mostly on innovation, or how would you solve the world problems. And as Gopalji, ended his discussion, that we must focus on the why. Don't kill all the COVID patients. Find a way to live with all of them and even give them a good life. So thank you so much, Gopalji, for adding this perspective to the discussion. Let me now invite the next speaker for today, Ms. Annu Arora, Principal SL Suri, DAV Public Senior Secondary School from New Delhi, Delhi. Annu ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. A very warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Being the last speaker, I've been put at a little disadvantage because everything has been said. So I'll take it to a different level and I'll say, how many of you, I have this question for you, how many of you would like to be taught through a computer? And how many of you would like to be taught in a classroom by a teacher? And very honestly, I'm pretty sure 99.9% people will say, I would rather go to the school and get taught by a teacher, because that's what my students are telling me online when I go to meet them. Ma'am, when are the schools opening? We want to come to school. We want to meet you. We want to meet our friends. So I think that human connect is missing. Though we are very efficiently handling the online classes, no doubt about it. There also the presence of the teacher is a must to be able to handle it properly. I know my teachers are taking sessions after the classes, with their classes, just sitting and talking to them, not really teaching them. Because that is what they're craving today. Somebody to talk to, the human connect, a hug. I'm missing my hugs. Because when I go into my little section, the kindergarten, the children rush to me and want to hug me. So when I go to school, because as an admin person, I am going to school, I do miss those children in the corridors. So I think computers, as we all agree, will never replace teachers. And the AI will need years of training to come to the level of empathy, counseling, the inspiration which our teachers offer, the encouragement we offer, the individual attention we give to our students. I don't think that can be possible totally through a robot or through a computer. That has to come from a human. That kind of understanding of where the child lies, where is the learning gap, what kind of intelligence does he learn through? If we look at the multiple intelligence theory, is he a kinesthetic learner? Is he a music learner? How will he learn? That kind of thing will come from a teacher only. You can't do everything mechanically. Yes, knowledge transfer is excellent through a computer or a robot. I will agree with that totally. And that is why I think our education system needs to change and not talk about only knowledge transfer. Today, it is more important to develop a love for learning in a child rather than giving him information which is there with him all the time at the click of a button. It's at his fingertip. He just has to click his phone and he gets the information he wants. So why are we focusing on knowledge transfer in our schools and in our education system? I think more important is human skills, soft skills, the love for learning. Is he a curious mind? Is he thinking out of the box? Or are we putting him in a box? Because that is a thing which might happen with a computer.
Thank you so much, Annu ma'am. And yes, आपने डिस्कशन को एक अलग वापस से एक ट्विस्ट दे दिया that yes, how would you like to be taught? ये एक बहुत ऐसा क्वेश्चन है जो कि हमें हमारी रियलिटी से एकदम तुरंत रिकनेक्ट कर देता है कि हम ठीक इतनी सारी बातचीत तो कर रहे हैं. We've been talking all sorts of things about do we need technology or do we need a teacher and do we need both of them? But most important, how would we like to be taught? And you took the discussion to a very interesting twist that AI will need years and years of training and learning to finally be somewhere near humans. And as with a very simple piece of information, I started the discussion that in 2012, we had a fully functional and amazing algorithm that could do assessment of students, and even literature assessment algorithms could do in 2012. There's an amazing news for all of you that till date, we have amazing technology that's been working, but AI decision-making on its own has not seen any development. And that's where the role of a human becomes very, very critical, because it's only a human who can handle a situation without having past data. Computers can only work on past data. AI can only work on past data. Humans random, and that's the amazing piece that we have on our heads that we need to use much more. And that's where the role of a teacher becomes super, super critical. With every speaker coming in, I tried to intrude technology and tried to question you through the perspective of technology, was just to find out how much can it offend somebody, because the way offense helps in getting the best thoughts out, nothing else does. But you responded to it amazingly and you gave amazing ideas. So thank you so much, everybody. If you got muted, please don't get offended. Again, I'm really sorry if you got offended. So now it's time to conclude the roundtable. Before we go to the conclusion, let's have the final thoughts from Sahil once again on how does he think education is evolving, and does he need a computer to replace a teacher, or would he be happy with just a teacher? Over to Sahil.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I mean, I'm very grateful for your thoughtful comments. We touched on a number of dimensions, and I think it was a very power-packed discussion. In 60 minutes, we could derive out so much from the philosophy of education to administrative issues, to what is the role of the teacher, to what are the challenges with technology, to what are the international developments happening, and to issues of fee, teacher training. So much was discussed. I think if I have to summarize, I would say that we see that education is really at an inflection point. We highlighted the important dimensions of social emotional learning, of love and care, of individualized, personalized attention and the fulfillment of a child's need. And I don't think, and none of us thinks that computer can replace the role of a teacher there. But I think the inflection point is that we are aware that most of the teachers and most of the schools and most of the universities are not able to fulfill that aspect of education. We're lacking there. And if we continue to lack at that point, then through this inflection point, there are only two directions. People who are able to provide and fulfill the real role of education, they will rise above the computers, and people who are not, I think they will be replaced by computers. So that would be my summary that I learned from all of your points today. Back to you, Daksh.
Thank you so much, Sahil. And one thing that's for sure, that mediocrity will be outsourced to technology. We need to be better than mediocres. And one thing that where Blub World simply comes from, or the concept of Blub World, where we work on teens inspiring teens, we found out one very simple thing. The biggest and most powerful way to induce any change within humans or within your thinking process is to give you inspiration. Inspiration is the best stimulus to make you do anything. So what we did was, since the inception, we started finding stories of teenagers from across the globe who are doing amazing things and sharing those stories with other teenagers. For a very simple reason, if I tell a teenager about Gandhi, he might not relate to it because his dress-up changes, his way of thinking changes, as he's not able to relate him with his real life. So what we found was, this would be a good stimulus, give him stories which he can relate to. So before this call comes to an end, one such story for you about two boys from India, from two different cities, one in Delhi and one from Mumbai. Both come from a very, very weak economic background, but had a taste for something international. They wanted to learn a dance form which was very feminine, wanted to do it within their cities, could not do it, could not afford it. So put in all their efforts, they went out to the city of glamour in India, which we call Bombay or Mumbai, found a trainer. That trainer, became a mentor to them And right now, these two boys live in their dream city, learning their dream dance form. And these two boys are India's first danseurs or ballet dancers. Both of them live in Paris right now. And they were the cover page of Blub World some months back. That's Bobby Roy and Dipesh Verma. We had these two boys some time back on our platform talking to nearly 5,000 to 8,000 students on a single call like this. Because just to put it very simply, teaching has to take a new form right now. And that form cannot be teaching. Teaching has to now be inspiring. So thank you so much, people, for being with us for the last 60 minutes. I hope you enjoyed. And thank you so much again for being a part of the Blub World Web Talks 109th episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please put your hands up. And I hope we'll have you again in the sessions in the future. Thank you so much for being with Blub World. Thank you, people. Thank you so much.